evening. Welcome to the Monday, March 18th, 2024 meeting of the Fitchburg School Committee. I call this meeting to order. All right, we do not have an executive session at this time. Please be advised that FATV is conducting an audio and video recording of this meeting for public broadcast. So I ask anyone in the audience who is recording this meeting to please identify yourself for the record and state your name and city of residence. Seeing none, I'll ask that all electronic devices be placed into silent mode. Let me do that for myself too. Okay, and now we will do the salute to the flag. Deb Jeffries, will you please lead us in the salute to the flag?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we have school committee members and student reports. School committee chair report, we have no report at this time. We have the resource subcommittee.
Be meeting next week.
When are we meeting?
Tuesday,
Tuesday.
26th.
At what time?
5 o'clock for building needs, and then about 5:30, 5:45 for resource subcommittee, most likely.
That'd be the same with resource. Yep.
All right. So school building needs?
School building needs same meeting.
We will be meeting. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry to jump the gun on that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Are there any questions or comments or concerns for that? All right, seeing none. The policy subcommittee.
Hey, we met on March 13th with Tracy Novick from the Mass Association of School Committees to continue our work with updating and revising our policies. And we worked in Section B, and we're going to continue our work on April 24th.
Thank you. April 24th, is that also at 5 p.m.?
No, that, wait a minute. I want to say that one is 6 to 8. We have a couple of different times, that's why. 6 to 8.
That was 6 to 8, yes.
6 to 8. And these are at the main administration building
Correct.
on South Street.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. All right, any questions or comments about that? All right, seeing none, we will move on to the Student Support Subcommittee.
Thank you. Oops. Thank you, Madam Mayor. We met on March the 13th, and we were able to cover two of the points that we had on the agenda. The first one was under the Administrative Standard 1, which is instructional leadership. Superintendent Thompson gave us a PowerPoint presentation of the curriculum. He let us know that we use the Massachusetts curriculum framework, but the product are all the resources we're using, and several of them are new, but he is focused on using material that is evidence-based. Also, he said that these methodologies that are being used are supposed to be evidence-based, and also that they should be approved or rated by the EdReport site for proper review. Also, we were able to go over some points from Administrative Standard 3, which is dealing with family and community engagement. Ms. Eva Kelly shared the presentation with us, and she explained that the funds from the Student Support Act is used to add several new models, such as the further organization of school councils, because they were not organized the way how we would like, additional things such as the SEPAC, which is the Special Education Parent Advisory Committee, the LPAC, the English Learner Parent Advisory Committee, and a Safety Task Force to respond to concerns that, citizens of Fitchburg would have. Also comprehensive, that there would be a comprehensive translation service provided, etc. There was additional items also mentioned. All the other items that we had on the agenda would be placed on next month agenda because we ran out of time, but we did that. I also would like to take the time to say congratulations to Ms. Colon, and I pray that you may get better, recover speedily. Thank you so much, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Dr. Knight. Are there any questions or comments? Dr. Knight. Okay, seeing none. We have the School Personnel Subcommittee. We have no report at this time. And we have a report from our student representatives.
At Fitchburg High, the spring sports season has officially started today. Practices and tryout information will be given to students by their coaches. Spring sports include basketball, baseball, softball, lacrosse, girls tennis, girls flag football, boys and girls outdoor track and field, and boys volleyball. With any questions, email Mr. Robbins. The MVP program applications for next school year are on the Fitchburg High homepage. The program is a great opportunity for students who will be in 11th or 12th grade next school year and are interested in studying carpentry or electrical at Monty Tech. At Memorial, students in 7th and 8th grade attended a career fair where they had the opportunity to speak with a variety of professionals and explore career options. 8th graders also had the opportunity to go to FHS and watch rehearsal for The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. And Mrs. Mayo's science class received an award for 1-8 Applied Learning Hub Student Industry Connect program.
At Longshow, March Madness attendance has begun, where advisories will compete for the best attendance during the month of March to win prizes and fun events. Yearbooks are on sale for students, and students should see Miss Orsini or Mrs. LeBlanc. A calendar raffle will take place to benefit the PTO. Contact Mrs. Valero or Mrs. Robillard for more information. On March 21st, Longshow will have a Rock Your Socks Day in recognition of World Down Syndrome Day. At South Street Early Learning Center, kindergarten enrollment for the 24-25 school year begins on April 1st. The after-school program is in full swing, with students loving the focus on play and STEM. Students enjoyed celebrating Dr. Seuss's birthday as well as St. Patrick's Day in class. Mrs. Stamos' kindergarten class was rewarded with water play for getting hundreds on iReady. At Rheingold, a cereal drive is being held by the Student Council for the food pantry and will be collecting them until April vacation. The drive will end with a cereal box domino setup to celebrate the student contributions. The Rheingold Bunny Breakfast will also be held on Saturday, March 23rd from 8:30 to 11:30 a.m. Thank you.
Thank you to our student representatives. Okay, any questions or
I'd
comments?
just like to make a comment.
Yes.
I'd like to congratulate our James Cannon for his wonderful performance in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. He was magnificent.
Ooh, who did you play?
Edmund?
Edmund? Nice.
Joe.
Thank you. Anything else? Okay, thank you very much. Moving on in the agenda, we have the approval of the minutes from our previous school committee meeting of March 4th,
Make a
2024.
motion to approve the minutes, March 4th.
Motion and second to approve the minutes. Are all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, that is unanimous. Thank you very much. We have communications on the agenda, and there are none at this time. We have public comment. Public comments of no more than 5 minutes in length were offered to be submitted to the superintendent via email by noon of this today. Were there any public comments? No. Okay. I now invite anyone in the audience who wishes to speak to please approach the podium, identify yourself by name and city of residence, and you are free to make a public comment of no more than 5 minutes at length. Okay. Seeing none, we will continue on our agenda. We have superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, everyone. I have some 3 to 4 big items tonight on the superintendent's report. Before I begin my presentation this evening, I just wanted to thank Dr. Knight, Deb Jeffries, and Lindsay England, our 3 new school committee members, for joining me last week for a tour of all our district schools. Last week, I think it was on Wednesday, we spent the day from 8:30 to 1:30 viewing our buildings and walking through some classrooms. So I just wanted to say thank you. It was a great day. We had a lot of laughs.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to say thanks. Yeah. All right. So this evening, we are joined by the Steve Ciccolini Memorial Music Program Education Committee. They're here this evening to discuss their program and also discuss the donation they are making to Fitchburg High School, Memorial Middle School, and Longsdale Middle School. Also joining us this evening is our wonderful band instructor, Tabitha Greenleaf from the high school. So please come on up.
Thank you for having us. So I wanted to introduce the other members of the committee. Sylvia Monteverdi. I'm Sharon Sambito. This is Sylvia Monteverdi, Joanne St. Jean, Mike Ciccolini, Gary Andres, and Bob Belleville. For a little background, for those who don't know, 3 years ago, March 2021, we lost our dear friend Steve Ciccolini to COVID. In an effort to help us make sense of that loss, his friends and family came together and founded the Steve Ciccolini Music Program and Education Memorial Fund. Steve was a renowned and beloved musician whose career spanned over 50 years. He had a love of his community and took great pride in mentoring young, aspiring musicians along their musical journey. Our mission through this Memorial Fund is to continue to spread Steve's love and passion for music by supporting local and regional music programs and assisting young, dedicated musicians through financial support of their music education. Since the fund's inception, we have raised 2.5 years ago, we have raised $91,000 to keep his legacy alive.
Oh, wow.
So on behalf of the Steve Ciccolini Memorial Fund, it is our pleasure to present a check in the amount of $12,000 to the music programs of Fitchburg High School, Memorial, and Longsdale Middle Schools for purchase of musical instruments.
Thank you so much.
Would you like to come up and accept the check?
Tabitha, I didn't even see you here.
Yeah.
So you get it.
Maybe some pictures.
You want to take a picture? Yeah, because we had, yes. Right. Because Daniel Ray said she would put an article in the paper for us.
Wonderful.
If we could get some pictures. Can everybody, come on, step up.
I have to give him a big thanks up.
That's the money. Come close, so everybody gets some.
Wonderful.
Can you look at me? I want to get one too. Yeah.
Hold on, me too.
Yeah, me and John. Okay, ready?
Oh, I'm not ready.
Okay, do me first. Look at me first.
Faster than that.
Yeah.
Look at me first. All right, one more time. Wonderful. Thank
you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your generosity.
Will you send those pictures to me? You have my email, right?
Absolutely.
Or
I'll send them
text?
in the morning.
All right,
Yep.
okay.
Would you stay for a second for questions and comments?
Oh, sure.
Yes.
Whoa.
Well, I just wanted to say thank you so much for all that you have done. You know, that's wonderful. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. It's been our pleasure.
At the last meeting, when Superintendent Thompson mentioned that you were making this donation, I spoke briefly then. Like Bob, I went to high school with Steve, and I knew him very well. And as I said at that meeting, two things. I don't think I ever saw Steve when he wasn't happy or smiling. And that if you were having a down day and if you saw Steve, you'd feel a lot better after you talked to him. And I think the last time I saw him perform was, I don't know what year it was, but the Fay Club was having their clam bake. and he played upstairs. And I'm not sure who else was in the band, but that was the first time I had seen him in a long, long time, and he was still the same Steve. And I think he'd be very proud, very happy that you're doing this in his memory, and that music will continue with your help in our public school. So I thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. You know, I just, wouldn't they like a picture with the mayor to identify, you know?
Would you like a
took the
picture with,
but-
would you like a picture with me?
Yeah.
And the superintendent?
Can
I get in there too?
Thank you, Rosemary.
You want to take a picture, Pete? Yeah. Okay, all right.
Yeah, that's a better shot. Yeah. I'll grab it.
Who's taking a picture?
Oh, no.
Oh, okay, good. Yes, I can. Well, then, who's going to take the photos then?
I'll do it. Just show me.
Are you doing all the photos?
I'll do all the photos.
Okay,
All
there
right,
we
There
go.
we go. All right.
All right.
Kind of do like maybe 2 rows. No, that's good. Okay, here we go.
Just kind of generalized, centered portion. Yeah. There we go.
And Tabitha, why wouldn't you be in it too? Yeah.
Yeah.
You're the music. Try to get her mom in it too.
Just look at Jim.
Why would you do that? Hold on. One more. Thank you. Thank you very much.
This one, Tabitha's.
Is
This one yours?
Is this yours?
No, this is the mayor's.
But anyone in the family that saw the picture with the mayor, they'd say, what's this about?
Very nice. Thank you. Thank you so much. Appreciate it so much. Thank you.
I wish I had seen the play. I didn't know about the play.
Hey, appreciate it. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you. I appreciate it. No.
Thank you.
You, brother, I'm going to say you.
Thank you.
And I mean that in a good way. Hey, thanks a lot. Oh,
Thank you.
okay. Okay. I'll distribute everybody in the meeting. Thank you. Thanks again for everything.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming out.
All right. Our next item this evening is an update on our English language arts curriculum. Today we are joined with Julie Keefe, our Director of English Language Arts. She is with us this evening. Julie, come on down to the podium.
Come on down.
Come on down.
Listen up here.
You can plug it in. There should be an HDMI cord. Now, just a reminder, this is our continuation of our directors coming to present updates on our current curriculum. Last time we had Tammy Chandler with us for math, and now we are focusing on English language arts this evening. So welcome, Julie.
Well, thank you. Let's see if this ends up here. Ooh, perfect. Okay.
English is one of my favorite languages.
Okay. Well, thank you for having me. So I'm Julie Keefe. I am the Director of English Language Arts here in Fitchburg. This is my 3rd year here as part of Fitchburg Public Schools. I'm honored to be here and part of this community. So tonight is an opportunity to learn a little bit about the work in literacy here in Fitchburg. So our mission is to create this active learning experience for all of our students, so that they have an opportunity to interact with a wide variety of resources, not just text. It's also visual images included in that as well, while they're engaging in discourse. So in discourse could be, through oral, our talking through discourse. Sometimes it's visual with images or labeling of things or writing that out. We're also working critical thinking as well as reflection so that students have an opportunity to build an awareness of themselves, but also the community that they're in, both their local community as well as our global community. Our curriculum is organized with 4 main areas. So it's not just reading, but it's reading, it's writing, it's our speaking and listening standards, as well as our foundational skills. And those foundational skills are there for our pre-K students all the way through grade 5. And within each of those areas, there are sub-areas. So in reading, we're looking at key ideas and details. We're looking at how text is structured, how authors present their ideas, and how we make sense of that as readers. And when we talk about our skills as writers, we're looking at who are we writing for? Why are we writing? What's the purpose of that communication? And we're writing across a variety of genres. So personal narratives to informational, all sorts of things there. And our speaking and listening standards work on comprehension and collaboration, and then how we're presenting that information out to others. And the foundational skills are, the kind of underlying pieces that help our students to become literate in their phonological awareness, phonics, fluency, so reading, so that reading is smooth and they're able to understand that and tackle any kind of text there. We have a variety of resources. So our students in pre-K through grade 2 use Heggerty for phonemic awareness. That is the ability to gauge the sounds that are there in words, to manipulate those sounds. That's an essential part of learning how to read. Foundations is our core phonics instruction. It also contains phonemic awareness too, and our students in pre-K all the way through grade 2 use that. They also get to work on handwriting in there too. Spelling is part of that. And then we have a core instructional resource. So like Dr. Knight was talking before about Superintendent Thompson's piece about curriculum. For our students in kindergarten through grade 5, we have Houghton Mifflin's Into Reading, and we're in year 3 of that resource. And then we have a new resource now for grade 6 through grade 10, which is still part of that same family from Houghton Mifflin, but it's into literature. So we now have a strong kind of staircase, if you will, of our curricular resources. And then we have some of that in grade 11, but then we also have our AP courses there, as well as additional elective courses there at the high school. So what does this look like? Well, here's a grade 3 text. Oh, that was there. I'm going to have have Tabitha teach me how to do some song and dance. There we go. Well, let's see if this stays. There we go. Our resource, oh my goodness, is a mix of literature as well as informational text. In this case, this is Frozen Alive. Oh my goodness. And come on. That's all right. I'll talk you through it. Each of the units of study in the K-5 resource, I don't know what's happening there, but it goes between social studies content as well as science content. So it's a highly rich resource in terms of information for our students. So not only are they practicing those strong reading skills and writing skills, but they also have the opportunity to gain additional content knowledge in that.
Julie, do you want me to see if I can present from here and see if it's a little bit better?
Yeah.
I can hook up to Zoom, so it might actually work a little bit better. Let me see if it works, Julie. I have it up.
Yeah, go for it. While you do that, I'll just kind of talk through a couple of the pieces that you don't even need to see at this point. With all of both the Into Reading as well as the Into Lit, we have assessments. And those are available for students both digitally, but as well as print-based. The students have materials that are print-based as well as digitally based as well. In talking with the teachers as we looked at what was available for resources, coming out of having so much screen time during that time with COVID, we wanted to ensure that students had the ability to write on paper, and that we really had a focus of returning back to that, the importance of handwriting, of being able to express ourselves that way. But we also want to take advantage of these digital options too. We know that students are taking a digital state assessment when it comes to MCAS, so we want them to be prepared and comfortable to do that. This is an example of one of the selection assessments from The Tragedy of Macbeth that our grade 10 students, actually Ms. Kelly's grade 10 students were just finishing up Macbeth and the work that they were doing there. And so our students are using these, but it also means that teachers can see how students are performing according to those standards. So it gives them some information there. There's also a growth measure, which is one of our 3 times a year assessments, and it's adaptive. So students take that, and we're able to see how they can do from the fall to the winter to the spring. And we have that for everyone in grades K through 12. So we have one comprehensive measure now that's going across all grades, which wasn't something that we had before. All right. So we have had the good fortune of having the city and the community be able to support this work, but in knowing that accessing funding, especially grant funding, is really important. So part of my work here within Fitchburg has been to learn about the state grants that are available. And I'm proud to say that we've received nearly $500,000 in funding from the state. That is grant funding that does not need to be repaid. And it allowed us to be able to choose these high quality instructional materials and to support the implementation of that work. So the Into-Reading materials were purchased with the city funds as well as other federal grants and things like that, but we've been focused on implementing that, which means how do we make use of this tool? How do we support teachers who have done an incredible job of learning this, understanding what's happening, how to use these resources? But within a grant from the state, we've been able to support them in terms of additional professional learning, being able to go through walks of classrooms to see how students are interacting with the resources. And so with that, we've been able to create an implementation plan. In a few more slides, I'll go through the goals that we have from that plan. But we also received a grant that paid for half of the high school materials and all of the professional learning. So those materials at the high school were funded in a large part through grant funds. So as these things become available, I'll continue to work on that because it's an important way for us to be fiscally responsible. All right, so what is implementation? Well, it really is how are we making use of the resources that we have. And so as part of our implementation work across the elementary grades of K through 5, we actually have 3 long-term goals. The first one is centered around supporting teachers as they plan and deliver the Into-Reading lessons and the assessments so that students are receiving grade-level instruction and that we're meeting the needs of all of our learners. Within that, we've broken that multi-year long goal down into smaller goals for each year. So this year, we're really working on strong intentional planning and the use of those assessments that are there. And then we'll continue to grow that as we head into next year and embedding more discourse opportunities with our reading. And then in the 3rd year, being able to add additional scaffolds, adaptations to ensure that all of our students are accessing grade level learning and are supported to do their very best. Our second goal centers around writing and being able to engage in self-regulation strategies so that our students become independent writers. So we're looking at making sense of those lessons this year and supporting students as they're writing in response to their reading, and then going there to strengthen that amount of independent writing time. So how are students learning about writing, and then actually going and being able to do that on their own. And then lastly, we'll look at student writing assignments and being able to look at that data, examine that student work so that we get a really strong vision as what does it look like when you have mastered these writing standards, say as a 4th grader by the end of the year? What does that look like here in Fitchburg? And then our last goal is about building capacity in our instructional leaders. So our building principals have a really important job here, as well as all the administrators, and we want them to be able to understand the resources that we have. And so our last set of goals deals with supporting them in their learning of these curricular resources and being able to understand what does it look like when we're using these other reading passages, the writing work, what should that look like in classrooms? So that is our work on implementation, and now we begin scaling that up so that implementation has a plan now for middle school and then also for the high school resources.
What is the PLC?
it's our professional learning communities. So all of our schools have PLCs. On the elementary side, they function in grade level teams. The middle schools have them within the departments, so there's an English Language Arts PLC, and then the high school, they're by department as well. So it's a great opportunity to be able to learn a little bit, to look at student work, to do some collaborative planning together. So that's a strong structure that we have across all of our schools. And our instructional coaches are a really important part of that.
Talk about writing. Have you had any discussion on handwriting in teaching cursive writing? Again, that's something that I'm very interested in, and seeing cursive writing coming back, particularly grades 3, 4, and 5. Has there been any discussion on that?
So we have cursive writing as part of Wilson Foundations, and so is actually the penmanship before it. So it begins with letter formation, and handwriting is really important because when we are not thinking about how to make each individual letter, then our brain is freed up to think about the thoughts that we want to write about. So it's a really important part of being fluent. And so, yes, that's a key part of it. So it begins with the initial letter formations, then the appropriate penmanship there for printing, and then grade 3 is where cursive becomes.
Grade 3 starts the cursive.
Correct. Yep. So it was part of our Wilson Foundations, and we're using the Into Reading foundational skills there, and so that will continue to be a part of that. And that's another reason why we don't want everything done on the computer. It's finding that balance between bridging both those worlds. We need to be able to write, but we also need to be computer literate as well. And so how do we help our students to go between them? And that's the art and science of teaching.
I think learning cursive writing is a lifelong skill that the kids need to know. I know I talked to my friend Sally Cragen, and she does a lot of work at the Historical Society, and all the letters that she researches, they're all in cursive writing. And some of our kids today couldn't read these letters from the Civil War and so forth because they can't read the cursive writing.
It's a very, discerning. I hope nobody looks at my cursive writing. I did spend a lot of time on it as a student, but, kind of have opted for an evolved print of that. But it is important. And we need to be able to read, handwritten works. Like you said, there's a historical aspect of it, too. And I was actually just looking in my hallway the other day, and I happened to have postcards from my grandfather when he served in World War II. And I looked at him like, wow, he really had beautiful penmanship in these. So it is a way of connecting us both to our past and also connecting us to our future ahead. So, yes.
Julie, do you mind if I call you Julie?
No problem at all.
I just wanted to know, I have lots of questions, but I didn't know if you had a presentation and then would be open to questions.
I'm happy to be open for questions. I have just a couple more slides here, and then I figured that way it would lay the foundation. Sometimes questions get answered through there, and then I'm happy to take your questions too. So, you want to advance?
Learning Goal 3?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I kind of talked through it. Right? Yep. You can scooch. I put in some information here about our data, and I know that there have been, more explicit pieces about where we're at. iReady is one of our assessment tools that we use here, K through grade 8. And so students take a screener 3 times a year in both reading and math. So this takes a look at where we were at in the fall of this year and where we're at in winter. We'll have our last screening of the year in late May. So we have a few things that we're looking at. There are some good trends of growth between fall to winter, but there are also some places that, we want to dig a little deeper in and look and see what's happening. 4th grade tends to be one of those places where we're seeing kind of some things there that we're looking at. Is there something happening as students are getting more difficult text, and are they not able to kind of dig into that and that transition from 3rd to 4th? And then it's same in the middle school too. We know that the rigor of those texts is increasing, and how do we help our students to dig in when the reading gets difficult? And we all face that any time that we're reading things. There are times when I'm reading something and I have to kind of break it down and go chunk by chunk and make sure I understand what I'm reading there. So that gives you, one piece of that information. In addition to that, we also screen students in those phonological skills. So their phonemic awareness, the awareness of sounds, the awareness of how to decode words, and we do that on the DIBELS assessments, and those are used in K through 8 as well. And then the next slide has the HMH growth measure information for the high school. So this, I set it up so that you can actually see grade 9 beginning of the year, BOY, and then grade 9 middle of the year. And then grade 10 beginning and middle, 11. So everybody except for a smidgen of grade 9 has a decrease in terms of the number of students who are far below, and has a good increase in the number of students who are on level or above level. So this is our first year with this growth measure. And this, again, gives us an opportunity to understand where students are at, how do we use that data to help inform instruction, but also for us to think about how are our resources? Are they meeting students' needs? Are we helping our students to grow in their literacy skills? And this is looking at really their comprehension reading, as well as there's vocabulary work in there too. This doesn't have a written component, so students are not writing an essay as part of this assessment, just so that you know that's there. But we do that in a kind of an internal created writing assessment, so that teachers do have a sense of where students are at in their writing skills. And then lastly, it's just a promo for our Community Reading Day that's coming up here. So our focus has been on leading with literacy, and so we have a selection of texts coming up for March 29th. There's lots and lots of boxes that keep arriving, which is exciting. And so we'll be able to have books that really represent the Fitchburg community as a whole, because we know that it's important that our students have books that are mirrors, windows, and sliding doors. By mirrors, it's that ability for you to see yourself in a text. Everybody deserves to be able to see themselves. We've all had that book where we pick up and go, oh, they so get me. This is me here in it. To be able to have a window gives you that opportunity to look at what another person is experiencing. What's their reality like? The sliding doors allows you to step into a story, to be able to be part of that the author has created this, and then you can be in there and to be part of that story. And so I thought of that with Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, because I was like, oh, that was one of those stories where I just felt like I was part of Narnia, and that was it. So just a little plug there for what we have happening here in terms of our community reading work. Questions?
Are you ready for my list?
You bet I'm ready. Look at this. So I got a pen, I got paper. I'm all yours.
Pardon?
I'm all yours.
Oh, okay. Let me see. Do you have a classroom, or are you a person who oversees everybody else?
I have the pleasure of working across all of our schools with all of our teachers and our building administrators and our instructional coaches from K through 12.
I just want to make a spontaneous comment.
Okay.
That your presentation was a delight to take part and to watch.
Thank you.
Many of the presentations are so data-filled that we get glassy-eyed or cross-eyed, and can't keep up. I can't keep up mentally with trying to understand it myself, or try to understand how you want me to understand it. Or so yours, whatever you did, there's a simplification there with those colors. Those.
Thank you. Trying to work those writing skills that I have, those writing standards.
Because we're learners too,
That's right. Yeah. We are all learners.
So I think that you said that you are preparing the young people for a digital world and a non-digital world. And I was thinking, should there be a collapse of the digital world for a day or a week or a year or 2 years? Mm-hmm. Anyway, whoever expected COVID, we didn't expect that.
True.
Well, I really, really applaud that give them a concept that all of these things might not be there forever in the exact form that we're accustomed to. And I applaud many of the things that you're saying. And how do you coordinate with your teachers? Is this part of I'm a regular substitute at Leominster High School, and I know Wednesdays is the day that people come in to talk to the teachers. Is that how you communicate to your teachers?
There's actually multiple ways of communication that, that happen. So some of it happens digitally, right? So just everybody knows that I'm accessible through email. That's one way. Then I can attend those PLCs that I referenced, those professional learning communities that are happening in all of our buildings. So sometimes you'll see me, I'm at Long Show one day, and then I'm talking to high school students, and then I let them know, like, hey, I was just in kindergarten yesterday. Like, really, miss, you were in kindergarten? I was like, yeah. Nice. It can go everywhere from, being with 5-year-olds and sitting there on the rug to hopping into a table of 17 and 18-year-olds, and I think that is such a huge benefit of this work, because I tell them, and today I was actually with one of our instructional coaches. Ms. Jeffries is, was a powerful force as part of our coaching team. We're very fortunate to have instructional coaches who are there to partner with teachers across the district. And so we have a literacy coach in all of our buildings.
Well, when you say you're there, do you mean physically or by Zoom?
Physically. Oh, that's right. You'll see me driving around, hopping all over the city.
Let me see. You right at the beginning, you said you had print. You wanted the young people to be familiar with print concepts. By that you mean books or.
Exactly right, right. So our youngest learners are understanding, like, when you have a book, it has a title page. And when you open that book up, we start in the top left and we read left to right and we go from top to bottom on a page. So our preschoolers are exploring books and they're looking and making sense of those pictures and understanding, hey, this picture actually goes with the words that are here. Hey, some books don't even have words. And so we're making up stories based on the pictures that are there. So yes, that's print concept.
That's print, and then the digital, I suppose they have Chromebooks or do
Correct. Yep, we are a one-to-one district, so we're quite fortunate to have access to those. So the students have, for all of our core resource, whether you're in kindergarten or all the way up through the high school, they have access to the stories and the questions and things that go with those books, but they also have a print-based workbook. So they can write right in there, they can write on the stories, they can annotate and do that right there as well.
And are you doing, I didn't hear the word, but are you presenting any memory work to these young people? Because I feel that's an intellectual power that we've got allowed to get rusty. And
so kind of like our ability to memorize and things like that. That's a good point. I wouldn't say that it's built right into these resources, but I know that we do have teachers that are having students, like April is Poetry Month. So poem in your pocket is such a great thing, and being able to memorize your favorite poem and do that. So there's great importance in that work.
When I grew up in our Sunday family rides for ice cream or business or whatever it was, my mother and father could quote poetry. They go back and forth. Wonderful to listen to, and I still remember some of the things.
That's right.
Sleep, it is a gentle thing, beloved from pole to pole. And so I personally have taken on the task to memorize. And I find so many people are amazed that I can memorize. And I'm saying, well, this is something all of us have.
That's right.
But we haven't pulled it out. And when people do make the effort to do that, they love it. It's an intellectual power.
Yeah, it's very striking.
All right, so I'm for memorizing. Let me see. PLCs, why did I have? Professional Learning Community. So are you saying that, where are the PLCs and who are the PLCs in the different grades in different schools?
On the elementary side, it happens in grade levels. So grade 2 at Rheingold meets once a week. Those teachers come together, the instructional coaches, the building administration, they come together. They may be learning, something new, a resource that's part of the instruction. They may be looking at student work or collaboratively planning together. So it's a way for teachers to come together, because we're so much better when we work together as a team. And so that's an opportunity to collaborate. And that happens in all of our buildings.
In all of your buildings?
Correct.
That's all. Just another potential subject matter. We're accustomed to well, fluid writing, you use the word fluid a lot, and a lot of detail. I recall the interest in put more detail in at different years. And yet, I have heard persons with tremendous knowledge, a lot of effort put into learning about the past. And simplicity in writing, too, perhaps should be encouraged. Something that evokes, what did you mean by that? Well, I wonder what they thought. Sure. It would be critical unity there, but
and that's
intentional
part
simplicity.
Yes, that would be part of our writing standards. Being able to communicate clearly and effectively also at times means efficiently, right? So that you all didn't want me to come up here and have 40 slides. That would not have been good for, clearly communicating that. So brevity is, powerful.
Yeah. I guess. Okay, thank you.
Sure. Dr. Knight?
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ms. Julie, for your hard work, getting the grant, to secure those funds to, help position our teachers so that there can be improvement in teaching and learning. I also wanted to ask you if doing those professional learning communities, the chairs of these learning communities or the facilitators, are they utilizing a variety of methods and techniques of teaching to be able to meet the needs of the students, accommodate their various learning styles, help teachers' pedagogy to improve? I mean, things like ratiocination, right, around strategies, Socratic seminars, cooperative learning, etc., so that they can present these resources that, you're talking about that I'm glad that they're new, because before we didn't have them, to help improve teaching and learning.
That's correct. So it is our focus anytime that we are sitting down to plan that we are there to meet the needs of all of our learners. Learner variability is the norm. And so we're not designing instruction for some imaginary median student. That in every classroom there is a range of learners. And every learner themselves has a range of skills. We all have strengths and we all have areas that we can have support in and able to reach even further. And so our teachers do an incredible job of that. And yes, it is also something that we continue to learn more about. So our resources themselves have those embedded in it in terms of differentiation, meeting the needs of learners. But we're also looking at other evidence-based strategies that are there to support all of our learners.
Yep, and these are the material that we are focusing on would be relevant to the students, student-centered.
Correct.
And okay, and you're training the administrators also so that when they go in to evaluate the teachers, they're seeing that the teachers are using these best practices to improve teaching and learning.
That is
correct.
Thank
you so much. We need to do that. As much as we can. I appreciate it.
It's a a full community amount of work here, so.
Yay for you.
Yay for all of us. This is a village.
Yeah.
Julie, I just want to comment that it's so nice to hear that we have something now that is going right through the school system. The assessments that are the same. We've been looking for curriculum and assessments like that could be uniform across since I started in Fitchburg. So it's been years, and it's finally there.
So you're saying every fourth grade in the schools have the same
They're all the
assessments?
same, but also
That's correct.
like this, the curriculum is, you're using the same, into the middle school and then the high school.
Right.
It's nice to see that happening.
So it's building on each other.
That's right.
And that's the way, and that's better for, for all of us as educators, but for the students too, just to keep going with it.
Especially in those transitional years. When we look at our students transitioning out of elementary school and into middle school, that 5th to 6th grade transition, and then again for our 8th graders heading into the high school, the resource that they know and have been using is the same, but it's just now stepped up to the next grade level with new stories and the work that they're doing there. But they know how it's laid out. They know how to use this tool. And so that's one less thing that you have to worry about, when you're 14 years old and you're like, oh boy, I'm now at Fitchburg High. Here we go. And that's important. That leads also to just a greater social emotional wellness so that our students can attend to these bigger, cognitive demands on reading and writing and all those things.
It's easier to track the students that, are showing that they need certain things in different areas. When they move on to like the middle school, they're in that same program. You can, target those needs. Continue to.
Strong.
Thank you very much. Very great presentation. Appreciate that. The question I have is, especially with the K through 5 ELA program, how does it work for students who maybe when this was started they were already in 3rd grade or 5th grade, and how, because obviously they didn't have the previous years going through this, how was that handled and how did you succeed with that?
That's a very good point. Also, for me, I came in when I first started in Fitchburg to a brand new program. So it was kind of like, which is good. And also you're like, ooh, okay, here we go. Thankfully, the way that it is structured is something that, a student who's coming in brand new to Fitchburg, let's say as a 4th grader, will be able to get into these stories that it's not as though you've missed an earlier story. Let's say you even came into the school year in November. The stories that were there in September and October, you didn't need to know those in order to be able to learn from the current story. And I would say the same is true from a student who didn't have it as a 2nd grader, but then has it as a 3rd grader. And all of it is grounded in the state frameworks. So if a student is coming from a different school within Massachusetts, well, they've been working those same standards. They may have been using different texts to do it, and that's okay. So it is accessible in that way. But I think a big part of that has been supporting the teachers in their understanding of the resource. There's a lot to that resource, which is great, but it isn't something you just open up that and you're reading off that what to do as a teacher. It does involve planning and knowing who's before me, how am I going to structure this lesson? Who am I going to have do some echo reading? Who's going to do some partner reading? Maybe we're going to, have some independent reading. Those are all instructional decisions that our teachers are making every day. And so that's where, being able to do this work and learn from one another is really important.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Julie?
Well, a subtlety. Are the teachers happy with this? Are they enthused?
So I have heard.
I think she's enthused.
Yes, Ms. Jeffries is a very good, source for that. But from what I have heard from teachers, which is a lot, that they are very happy with it. The elementary folks are in year 3 of a 6-year contract for this resource. They're also glad that we're not constantly switching things. Right. Because that's important. We want to be able to become comfortable and skilled with the resources that we have. And, they feel as though, okay, we've reached this point now, like I'm getting good at this. Yeah. And so that's just beginning for our secondary folks. And so we have continued professional learning opportunities through the grant. Teachers have an ability to be paid for planning outside of the school day. So being part of lesson study cohorts with me, with instructional coaches. So lots of opportunities to be supported in that work.
Really, the driving thought behind that was that teachers, I believe, are gifted with the ability to teach. Mm-hmm. And if that's thwarted, it's no joy. But if it's encouraged, it's a tremendous joy.
Yes, and I think it's really important that teachers have a structure. As a district, we have a structure, but there's also opportunity for teacher voice and their passion to be part of that. Mm-hmm. So in the selection of longer read texts, these aren't just excerpts. We have, opportunity for students to read full text and for teachers to have choice in that work too. Mm-hmm. That's important.
In your comment about this is a 3rd year for elementary. Mm-hmm. Any program, it usually takes 3 years to really get a grasp of a program and to be able to feel confident with all of the lessons with it. Mm-hmm. So this is a big year to get through.
No, thank you.
One last question for me, I promise.
It's okay.
You know, when you were answering my question, you mentioned about teachers. How easy is it for a new teacher coming into the system?
Good question.
It's a very good
For
question.
whatever grade it might be, and I'm assuming there's support there, but to get in and be an active part of the program and
And that's a really important consideration for us, knowing that turnover happens, right? We want to keep our folks, but we do know that we have retirements, we have openings, and so onboarding new staff is essential. So actually, I just got off a call last week with Houghton Mifflin, and we're using some of our professional learning time to already set up August for brand new teachers to Fitchburg. So there'll be an onboarding session. So if you're brand new, you get to know about Into Reading or about Into Literature. How does it work? Where do I find this? How do I log in? We also have a lot of that the directors have created online. So we have a teacher's lounge, which is a virtual place you can go to learn more about these resources. What does the, kind of timeline of units look like across the year? We've had coaches as well as teachers work on those. So there's documents there, there are videos there, but then also time with directors. That's part of new teacher orientation. And then when all of our teachers are back, we'll have additional professional learning to support them. And then that ongoing work in the PLCs, that really becomes essential there too. So it's multi-layered, and then the instructional coaching. So, a new teacher can sign up and do a coaching cycle. So a coach can come and plan with you, can be in your classroom, do a little bit of modeling, support you in your work. So that's our job embedded coaching. You can have me come. I always tell teachers I'm more than happy to come in, and they're like, okay, great, here's your small group, get to work. For me, that's important because I tell them that's where I learn best too. When I actually have to plan, and I did some common planning with 5th grade over at Crocker, and we sat down and planned one of these lessons, and then that, so, yeah.
Thank you again.
Sure.
So I just want to thank Julie Keefe for all her hard work. If you remember, 5 years ago, I was a young assistant superintendent coming up from the principal ranks to central office, and I came before some members of this committee asking for about $1 million to start some of this work and purchase a new literacy program for our elementary schools, because we were using a program that wasn't evidence-based or research-based. And I started that, and I was so fortunate that the school committee members allowed me to hire curriculum directors to continue to support that work, and Julie was one of the first hires I made. And I am just thankful for Julie coming in with the passion and the knowledge for continuing this work and working with all the administrators in addition to coaches and the teachers to start that work we did 5 years ago, and now seeing where it is now, it's awesome. So thank you, Julie. I really appreciate all the hard work.
Thank you. Julie, do you ever work with any of the professors at Fitchburg State with what we're using for materials now and what they're teaching?
So that there's a current grant out for that work, and I think that's a place that the state is leaning more into. So that is a place for us to really work with pre-service teachers, so the student teachers who are coming in, but also the work that they're doing in the classroom at Fitchburg State is a place for us to build, like back to Mr. Walsh's piece, how do we help build their awareness of these resources before they even come to Fitchburg, really? Which is a huge benefit to us. For me, I do that work not at Fitchburg State, but at Worcester State. And so it is important that what we're doing here is known there in Fitchburg State. And I think that's a place that we can continue to grow.
It's kind of counterproductive if the colleges are teaching, this is how you teach reading.
That's right.
And it's really, some of them have been around for a while, and times have changed. And
and they're looking at those pieces, and they're looking at the latest research in terms of, how are we teaching, what methods are we using, but for them to be aware of what actual resources do we have here in Fitchburg, and how can we help those incoming teachers to be already a step ahead of the game.
I think Ms. Colon had a comment. Ms. Colon, you had your hand up.
I did. First of all, Julie, thank you so much. The presentation was great. I just wanted to add in response to your question about partnership with Fitchburg State. Currently, we started that work with a math professor who is actually looking at the way that we are presenting our math standards, instructing our math instruction, because they have noticed that the way that, instruction is delivered and the way students are actually transitioning from high school into the college setting and receiving instruction, that there has been some shifts over time. So that is happening, not necessarily in literacy yet, but we are beginning that partnership and that work, because you're right, there are some changes that have happened over time at the college level.
Great.
All right.
Thank you, Julie.
Thank you for having me.
You're a great memory person. You memorize.
All right, moving on. So unfortunately, I hope I did not put together a boring presentation next with lots of charts and graphs, Rosemary. I hope I don't disappoint you, but...
I just want to say, John, it's a very tough act to follow.
The
pressure's really on now, right?
I'm already going to fail, I can tell you that.
Improvise.
I'm going to try my best. So this evening, Assistant Superintendent Cologne, Assistant Superintendent Roach, and I will be presenting to you our next steps in the Student Opportunity Act. Okay? As you know, we are in year 3 of the Student Opportunity Act, and we'll be finishing up year 3. And we have 3 more years after for our Student Opportunity Act. Tonight, I'm going to explain to you a little bit about what the Student Opportunity Act is, to review with you, what our plan has been for Fitchburg the last 3 years, and then talk a little bit about what we focused on in that plan, share a little bit about how we use the additional funding, and then I will talk to you about our plan moving forward for the next 3 years, okay? At the end of tonight, I do need a vote from my fellow school committee members to approve me to submit the plan to the state, which is due in 2 weeks on April 1st, okay? Any questions on what we're going to do tonight? We're going to review what we've done, talk about next steps, and get a vote to move forward. Okay? All right. So, to review, I want to make sure that you know what our promise is and our theory of action. So, as you know, our strategic plan highlights our promise. All means all. Every student, every day, no exceptions. Our theory of action: if all staff, families, and community partners collaboratively identify and remove barriers to personal growth and achievement, then every student will be ready to learn and access high-quality core instruction and social and emotional supports. As we go through our previous Student Opportunity Act plan and our next Student Opportunity Act plan, you're going to see that our theory of action is actually highlighted in there on what we chose to do with the additional funds, okay? And then, as you all know, we have our strategic plan on our 6 commitments. And again, as we go through tonight, you're going to see our 6 commitments are highlighted through our work we're doing in our Student Opportunity Act. So just a reminder, our commitments: curriculum, number 1 is curriculum that is accessible and reflective of all students. Number 2, a district-wide tiered system of social, emotional, and academic support. Number 3, staff development and a diverse recruitment plan. Number 4, strategic and effective use of all resources. Number 5, a sense of welcoming and belonging with all students, parents, staff, and all members of the community. And last but not least, number 6, community and stakeholder engagement. I just wanted to review these 2 pieces because you're going to see when we talk about something that's called our evidence-based strategies, or what we are going to do with the money that we get for the Student Opportunity Act, these are highlighted throughout. Okay, so that's what we really tried to do, is when we selected what we were going to do with the funds, we made sure that our commitments and our promise were highlighted in them. Okay? So, as you all know, in 2019, the state voted to approve additional funding, or how public schools were funded. And the state decided to provide funding to districts servicing students with the greatest needs. Fitchburg is one of them, okay? We have students with the greatest needs. Because of that, we got additional funding. We are in year 3 of that additional funding. We have subgroups or student groups that the state identifies as greatest needs, which I'll get into in a second. And then the state requires us to pick 3 evidence-based strategies that we will use the money for to improve the outcomes of those student groups. Does that make sense? So this evening, I'll talk to you about the student groups, what the evidence-based strategies are. Okay? So in Fitchburg, the students with the greatest needs are our special education students, our English learners, our Hispanic Latino, and our low-income students. Those are the 4 groups that the state identifies as our students with the greatest needs. So far, so good? This is the data that actually proves what they identified. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time going over this slide, but the 3 colors you want to look for is, if you look, the rating of all students. So students who are in the blue are student groups that meet or exceed all students' rates. Our pinkish color is student groups that does not meet all students' rates. And then the red or maroonish color are the greatest disparities from all student rates. Okay? So if you look over here, just move this so you can see. Over here, if you look at our student subgroups, you can see that our English language learners, our students with disabilities, our low income, and our Hispanic have the most need. They have the pink and the maroon or the reddish color, okay? That goes the same for down here if you look at this chart down here. Like I said before, here are our English language learners, our students with disabilities, our low income, and our Hispanic or Latino. Yes, our African American students do have some disparities, but they look at the other 4 as having the greatest. And that's why we focus on them for the Student Opportunity Act. So far, so good?
I have a question.
Yes.
Those subgroups are all the highest in the chronic absenteeism. That's part of our plan, right? I guess I'm skipping ahead. That's part of our plan? Chronic absenteeism, addressing that?
It's not part of the plan directly, but it is a strategy that we are focusing on.
Okay.
It's one of the data points.
It's one of the data points that we use.
Sure.
And I could talk a little bit about that later, too.
Okay, one more. The English learners have a lot of zeros. What does that mean?
That means they didn't make any progress.
Oh,
Yep.
wow. Look at the
Yep.
progress in the blue bars comparatively.
Mm-hmm. I shouldn't say any progress. They've made progress from not meeting to partially meeting, but they're not in the, they met from the lowest performing students, and they've gone up 1 category, but they're not in meeting grade level standards or exceeding. So they've improved, but not to where they're actually meeting grade level standards. That's what that means on the bottom. So we have to push these student subgroups over to meeting grade level standards. That's what the bottom part of this graph means.
One more. Do the 4 subgroups identified in Fitchburg with the greatest need correlate generally with all the other districts that
Yes.
on the Student Opportunity Act?
Yes. And as you know, the Student Opportunity Act really focuses on those urban districts, those gateway cities. Yep.
I have a question, too. One of the 4 categories is low income.
Yes.
And does low income on its own evidence poor outcome? Because the other categories are English language learners and I forget whatever the 4 are. You see what I'm saying? Could you,
Now repeat that question, Dr.
does having a low income have an impact on your learning ability alone, rather than the fact that,
So in here, it will show you that if you are low income only, you're making better gains than, let's say, students with disabilities or English language learners. That's only if you're low income. But you got to remember,
that's what I was wondering.
we have students that fit multiple buckets.
Yes, sure.
Right?
That's what I was about
so
to say.
we
They
in
overlap.
Pittsburgh have, we call them the double bucket kids because they may fit into more than just one. They may be ESL, students with disabilities, low income, and Hispanic or Latino. A lot of our kids fall into those four categories.
And that is
Yep.
our largest demographic group.
Is the 4 buckets?
No, it's low income.
It's low income, right?
That's the largest group?
Yeah. And remember, our
4,100 students.
and then our Hispanic students and our Latino students make up 57.8% of our student population.
If I could just add, too, I mean, if you do a straight comparison statewide of students who qualify as low income and students who are qualified as non-low income, there is a gap. When you use the normed exams like Julie Keefe was talking about earlier and some of the measurements like MCAS, there is a difference in the results.
Glenda, did you want to add anything? I didn't know if...
I did. Thank you.
Yep.
Yes, I think one of the things, I just wanted to share the research and data that shows about low income families, right? It also, there is a lot of research that the access to resources really does impact your learning. So people who are in low income homes, if you look at research, there is actually research that shows that families that are in low income communities, the impact on vocabulary can be anywhere from 500 to 5,000 words less than a student who is entering with more access and more ability. And you think about that happens for a majority of reasons. And sometimes that is access to adults and opportunities that happen before even entry at a school age level. So there really is a lot of resources that discusses, the impact of low-income families to academic learning. So I just wanted to share that.
Thank you, Glenda. All right, so that's just some of the data that supports why those 4 subgroups are what we focus on. All set there? Okay. All right. So here we go. SOA. So as you know, the SOA began in January 2021, and the former superintendent came to you and reviewed the 3-year SOA plan. And then in 21, 22, and 23, we implemented that plan. And we came back to you and showed you the amendments and changes that we made every spring about this time over the last 3 years, okay? Just to remind you, what did we focus on the last 3 years? What did we do? Here are the 3 evidence-based focus areas, or what did we use the money for over the last 3 years? These are the 3 areas that we focused on. And actually, I did give you a packet. And in your packet, this is the whole guide to completing the SOA plan. If you actually go to page 9 in your packet, those are the evidence-based programs in that table on the right that we have to select from to use the additional funding for. Okay? The names have changed over the years, but these are the 30 evidence-based programs that we have to select from, okay? So that being said, what have we done in Fitchburg over the last 3 years? So the first evidence-based strategy we used was supporting educators to implement high-quality aligned curriculum. We have put a lot of money into all the curriculum and the resources, just like you heard earlier from Julie Keefe, over the last 3 years. So a lot of the funding that we have purchased, a lot of the funding we used was to purchase high-quality curriculum and provide that professional development that teachers need to implement that in all grade levels, pre-K all the way up to 12. I am happy to say we have updated curriculum everywhere now in the district. Number 2 is inclusion co-teaching for students with disabilities and English learners. A lot of the funding used in this strategy was to focus on co-teaching training for our teachers, in addition to hiring more SPED teachers and ESL teachers for our students. And Mr. Roach will talk a little bit about that in a second to show you some of the funding that we used. And then last but not least, the last piece we used our funding for was to expand capacity to address social-emotional learning and mental health needs of students and families. Coming back from the pandemic, we knew there was a lot of support that our students and families needed. So a lot of the funding here, and I don't know why it keeps doing that, a lot of the funding here was to increase the amount of staff we had in front of kids, whether it was guidance counselors, social workers, clinical interventionists. In addition, we also hired behaviorists, whether it was a BCBA, which is a certified behaviorist, or an RBT, which is a behavior assistant, okay? We have added a lot more staff to meet the needs of our students, okay? Mr. Roach, do you want to talk about a little bit about what we did with the funding the last 3 years?
You bet. So you can see here that, as Superintendent Thompson noted, we have utilized the infusion of additional Chapter 70 funds, the state funds that come to the district, to address needs that we knew were in place in terms of what our students need, what our staff needs, and what the schools need. So a large portion of additional positions were added to support school safety. So you can see positions like deans of students across the district at various school levels, assistant principals that would help with not only school safety, but curriculum integration and the structure and organization of the school. Many clinical interventionist positions, 14 to be exact, and those are folks who are in the schools working with students who have, as you noticed from one of our goal areas, mental health, social emotional learning, to really work with students in the schools. One of the, I think, crisis situations that students often encounter is when they have identified mental health challenges, they can't get outside counselors. They're not available. So to be able to provide, or I shouldn't say they're not available, it's very difficult and it can be long wait times to be seen. And so our clinical interventionist, GC, would be guidance counselor. Those additional positions have helped a lot with that. We've added security monitors, we've added board-certified behavioral analysts, in addition to those behavior therapists, the behavior techs, I should say, the registered behavior techs. So and a director of social emotional learning as well, so that we can integrate all of these things into what's happening in the schools on a day-to-day basis, and we can move forward in the slides. Let me see there. Yep, and as noted in one of the other evidence-based practices and goal areas that we had, co-teaching to support language learners, to support students with learning disabilities. We've added, as you can see, 17 ESL or EL teachers and 29 special ed staff from teachers and paraprofessionals over the first 3 years of Student Opportunity Act. Again, we know this is a need. You saw some of the results there. We want to make sure that highly qualified, I should say, people are there to do the type of work that is required to support that type of student growth that we want to see. And then finally, overall, we've added staff at all of the schools. So this is a listing of the various schools. So it's Fitchburg High School, Goodrich Academy, Longshore, Memorial, Crocker, McKay, Rheingold, and the South Street Early Learning Center. And you can see the number of positions that have been added in the first 3 years of the Student Opportunity Act, the type of position, and the overall estimated investment. Again, this is in large part due to those 3 goal areas that we had, but also the fact that we were able to have additional funding for the first 3 years of the Student Opportunity Act. As we've seen in the first budget update from the last school committee, the pace of increases has not continued, so this year is not the same amount of funding across the state that communities like Fitchburg and others in Group 11 or 12 have seen, but we still have an increase, and we will work with that to do the best we can to continue these types of investments.
Thank you, Mr. Roach. So, that was the past. That was the first 3 years. Now we are in the middle. We're finishing up our 3rd year. The state is requiring us to update our plan and write another plan for the next 3 years. So that's what that circled box or circled text in front of you. So right now, we have to submit a new plan by April 1st. Next year at this time, I'll be coming back to give you a progress update. In 2026, I'll be doing the same thing. And then at the end of 2027, which is the end of funding, they said we're going to submit a new 3-year plan, but that's when the funding runs out or the law says that they no longer have to increase how much money we get. So we'll see what happens after 2027 in April. But this is what I will be doing with you during this time the next 3 years, okay? Updating on where we're at. Okay?
John, we hired a number of staff last year.
Yep.
And now money has been cut in half.
Yep.
How does that affect us?
So remember, that money doesn't go away, Pete.
Okay.
We have that money. The thing that will affect us now is that we get an increase. The increase is not the same as it was the last 2 years.
Okay.
So the money never goes away. It will continue to be added to.
Okay. So, but we've got half the money coming in that we got.
Correct. Right.
That is true.
That is true. But the money never goes away. It keeps building and building and building, but the amount will change.
Until it does go away.
Until it does go away.
Well, until they establish the rates.
Right.
So they're supposed to establish, I think I had shown a slide at one of our meetings that had a lot of numbers, but it showed that Fitchburg Public Schools is a Group 11 out of 12 category school, which means, and Student Opportunity Act increased the rates for low-income students, out-of-district special ed, ESL, but then also fixed benefits, because insurance rates go through the roof every year, and also psychological guidance and psychological services, because I think the state recognizes that those can be costly, but also a significant need in not just places like, not communities like Fitchburg, but every community. So the rates should be established at the end of the Student Opportunity Act rollout. And hopefully that means that once those rates are established, it will be a consistent increase that we can count on. Right now, it's a guessing game a little bit. And it's a guessing game based on the inflation rate in the state. The enrollment certainly is the number one factor in terms of the funds that we receive from the state. If our enrollment increases, we're going to get more funds. If it decreases, we'll receive fewer funds. It's just a simple mathematical equation there. Those are huge factors as Fitchburg continues to grow with the Student Opportunity Act rollout.
But like Jeremy said, the biggest issue this year was inflation. That's why we saw our amount.
It went down for everybody. Yeah.
Do you have any figure on that?
Oh, yeah?
1.35% was the rate, the inflation rate that they used to calculate the rates, whereas the previous years it was 4.5%.
So we were getting what last year? We got about 7.8 million?
Yeah.
In additional
Combined.
funds, Chapter 70 funds. This year we're only getting 4.3. All right?
4.3, including the city's contribution, 3.1 from the state, which again, a challenge that all communities are feeling this year.
So, with the SOA, Fitchburg Public Schools this coming year has to show how we will be spending $2,994,311 on the SOA. Those three strategies that we select, okay? We have to show how we're using this money. That's what our plan will entail, okay? We're going to talk to you about our plan moving forward, all right? So in front of you, you have the whole student opportunity packet, and then on page 9 talks about the 30 evidence-based strategies. We only can pick 3, okay? So moving forward, Glenda is going to talk to you about our 3 strategies that we chose for Fitchburg, which, remember, focuses on the work that we outlined in our strategic plan and our promise to the community. She's going to show you what those 3 strategies are, in addition to how we're going to use those funds. Okay? Glenda, you all set?
I'm ready.
All right. Go ahead.
Okay. Excellent. So this slide here just gives a quick overview of what the 3 evidence-based practices are that we are focused on for our upcoming years. What I really love...
I'm sorry, can we turn up the volume?
Yeah, can we turn the volume up a little bit for her, Glenda?
I can't see that.
Sure. My volume is all the way up.
That seemed a little better.
It seemed a little better, Glenda. Go ahead.
Okay, great. Sorry about that. So what I was saying is I am really excited about the 3 strategies or evidence-based focus areas that we are focused on, because what you'll see is that based on the previous strategies, these really elevate and really perfectly implement and align to the work that has already been done and really continues to align to those commitments. If you actually look at the page with your commitments, which was slide 2, you will see that these 3 strategies actually align with all 6. So none of them are actually missed. They are thoughtfully integrated in all the work that we are going to be doing. So I just wanted to take a moment to pause here for a minute so you can look, and then I am going to break down each of the strategies in the upcoming slides.
Do you want me to read these out loud for you?
I can't read them.
I'll read them for you. I can read them.
Okay.
So strategy number 1, 1.3, diverse approaches to meaningful family engagement. 2.2C, collaborative teaching models. And then 3.3B, support for effective team practices. Glenda's going to get into more detail on each of these.
I don't see that last one, John.
Right there, yeah.
It's up on the screen, I think.
Black would be better next time. I don't know. That's so hard to see.
Okay, noted. I'll make sure to read through the slides.
Oh, there's a typo on that one.
2C.
Page 13.
Oh, okay.
Actually, if you go to
Page 13. Page 13.
go to page 13, Pete.
Yeah.
This explains the strategy in more
Okay.
detail
All
on
right.
the next strategy. So the strategies you'll see, if you want to, as Glenda goes on, 1.3, you'll find that on page 10 in
Yeah.
your packet.
Yeah. Thank you.
2.2C. 2.2C is on page 11, and then 3.3B is on page 13.
Got it. Yeah.
All right. All right.
Okay, and I think these are a little bit easier to read. But one of the areas that we were really focused on is our diverse approach to meaningful family engagement, right? Our families are such an important stakeholder in our community. Our families and our student voice is really what is going to help drive our instruction and academics. So we really wanted to focus on what are the tools and opportunities that we can, offer our families. And so this is one that we really felt connected to for a lot of reasons. One is that, we happen to have a leadership team that really feels strongly about equity and really thinking about inclusivity and how do we improve our practice with that lens. And so one of the major things that we've been talking about, and that really seems to align with our previous strategy of social emotional learning, is that the director of social emotional learning and I have really talked about like what are some opportunities for some really great climate surveys so we can get data from our students, right? Our student voice is really important to our community, so we can really make informed practices about what they need and what we want to make accessible to our students. So we have started to really vet a program called Panorama Ed. And so that's something that we're starting to look at so that we can make some informed decisions about the social emotional needs of our students, but also how they feel about their school community and their school, and their district community. And so that's a really important piece in thinking about this work. The other thing, within this realm of equity that we have really started to do is we have started to partner with the Equity Imperative. They are actually a partner that has really been vetted thoroughly by the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. There has been a lot of wonderful resources that have been presented to us through the state. And so what's really great about the Equity Imperative is that they really support in thinking about, how districts leverage professional development to really get to the root of the needs of the student classroom, how we engage our families, and are we implementing best practices when we're engaging our families in our community, and then also thinking about even program design. We're really set in such a wonderful space right now where we have high quality resources, but that piece, Dr. Knight, that you talked about making sure that those high quality resources are actually reaching our students, right? Like that is an opportunity to think about our program design and really foster with partners that do that work really authentically and deeply in thinking about our students in our community. And another piece, so we've talked a little bit about the student voice. Another piece that we're going to enter is really thinking about the engagement of our families as partners. And so next year, we're actually going to start with a partnership that is also elevated through the Department of Education called the FIST Partnership, which is a really great model where we train our families and members of the community that want to be a part of the FIST partnership in really thinking about family engagement. And it's a two-way learning dialogue where our families share the needs that they have in the community, and then what are opportunities of us kind of, giving to the needs that our families have, and vice versa. What are the things that our families need that we can really support them with? And so really the idea of this is like creating voice and fostering empowerment within our families so that they can also be contributing members of our school community. And so that really is like a year one partnership, and that kind of lends itself to the next program that we have been thinking about, which is really creating a district welcome center in our community. We are so privileged to have, someone like Louisa within our district that really supports and engages families. This is an opportunity of taking that FIST partnership and that leadership role that we, empower families with and really welcome them into our school community right at our welcome centers and provide an opportunity for them to lead to also engage community members within the community and really empower us and give us a voice to understand those needs, and really open up that two-way dialogue. So we are very excited about this work. And then globally, we hope that this really impacts professional learning experiences, with our administrators and our staff, right? Because the focus of this is family and community engagement. And so in order to really do that authentically and to do that right, we also need professional development around that. So that is also encompassed in this particular strategy and focus area.
Thank you, Glenda.
You're welcome.
Questions on 1?
Yes?
Yes.
Yeah, please.
Rosemary.
This is equity initiative?
So that's
This
the
is
title of it, but that's, oh, go ahead, Glenda, sorry.
Sorry, I was going to say this particular focus is diverse approaches to family engagement. And so, equity is an opportunity of engaging with families, right? So, the state has identified that it is extremely important in order for us to have really improved academic success. We have to engage meaningfully with our community and deeply understand our community. And so ways of doing that is engaging in, equity initiatives like the climate surveys, like partnerships, and like the FIST partnerships and a welcome center for our families.
Could you define
and professional
Could you define
development.
equity for me?
Can I define equity for you?
Yes, please.
Is that what you're asking?
Yes, please.
Sure, it's an opportunity to engage our community in understanding their culture, their climate, and their voice, right? And understanding their needs. So in order for us to be equitable for our community, we need to understand the needs of our families and the needs of our community and really engage them in the process of academics and learning together.
So again, would you define equity? I don't.
The definition of equity is access, right? It's providing access so that we can, it's providing access for our community so that we provide equal opportunity for our community to receive the same academic access as other students in the community.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Well, sort of. I mean, I think that my experience has been that's what teachers have always tried to do. But set that aside. I just had a kind of a funny feeling. I don't think that our path to follow should come from the voice of children. I think we're the adults who, through our expertise and our learning and our efforts, lead. I think education is a leading by competent people. And I really have a funny feeling about putting much emphasis on surveys of what children say. I think a skilled teacher has that built in them. They know. And so I just have some reservations about that.
I can appreciate your reservations. I think what is really great about, this is absolutely no, push or disregard against the really important work that our teachers do. I think they are phenomenal and valuable to our classroom experience, right? But it is also really important to understand that not every single adult in every single space understands the life experiences and the student experience that the students come in with, right? So this is an opportunity of really getting a lens. Students are not making or driving the decisions. These school climate surveys are an opportunity for our community to have a lens that is not often available to them and that they may not necessarily have time to gather, right within their classroom as they're leading lessons, right? So this is just another tool to be able to provide access also to our teachers. So when we think about equity, we're not thinking about equity just for our students, we're thinking about the equity lens of our staff members as well. Because there are many staff members that don't have the same lived experience, and that's okay. And this is our response to being able to get that information to our students. It is one piece of the greater work, which is to engage families, which is the major part of the work.
I would be really happy. I noticed that you mentioned the family a lot, and I've seen in Fitchburg the outreach, largely due to the lady that you mentioned earlier. And I think that it's the parents, if you can get the parents. I would rather stay away from poking into children's minds and emotions.
So, Rosemary, we do both. Those surveys will also go
Yes.
to families. Those are not just what the kids say, it's also what the parents say. It's going to all members and staff, too. It's everyone in the community that works to make these, students' lives the best that we can.
Yeah.
So,
I'm uncomfortable with that area, okay? I'll just say that.
all right. Next
Okay.
initiative.
All right, so the next initiative, and again, I just want to frame that all of these are research-based initiatives, right? So these are what research says are best practices for our communities. So that being said, this particular one is called Collaborative Teaching Models. This is an extension of the co-teaching work that we have already been doing, right? We want to further deepen and develop that work by adding to the professional learning experiences to strengthen that work. So some of that, is defined in the structures that we have, but also in some of the partnerships and some of the training that we started this year and that we really want to extend. So the first bullet that we talk about, admin, PD, and coaching, is a partnership that we are going to re-engage in that has actually been a part of the Fitchburg experience before. And that is a partnership with the Lynch Leadership Academy at Boston College, and offering any sitting administrators who have been part of the Lynch Leadership Academy to re-engage with coaching as well from that community. Our idea is that we have some really wonderful leaders right within our school community, and we really want to support the growth of the leaders that are here and that would like to expand their roles and maybe even be sitting principals someday. So that is work that we are doing. We have been engaged in yearly ATSR and RBT, which is Research for Better Teaching, or Skillful Teaching Training. And so there is currently a teacher level professional development so that teachers really understand the strong practices and applications and skills that should be implemented in their classrooms and the planning that is needed to be implemented in the classrooms. And then there is the administrative level, which is the ATSR, which supports our administrators in observing those skillful teaching practices and giving coaching and feedback for those practices. So we are really excited about the work that has happened, have received a lot of positive feedback, and we want that work to continue on. The other professional learning experience that we have on here is our pathway to licensure. As we said, the areas that we really want to focus on are the focus area for our English, our ESL students, and also for our special education. And so, these are areas that we really do need extremely skillful teachers and educators to be able to, engage in this work. And so one of the things that we think would be really important is to provide a pathway so that some of our sitting educators who are interested in licensure in these areas can really specialize and hone their skills for special education and or for ESL. We currently have partnerships with Mount Holyoke and also Fitchburg State that is engaging and supporting and having dialogue with us in these pathway programs. And so we are really excited to strengthen that opportunity for our educators. As I already shared, one of the defined structures that we already have is a co-teaching model. And so at the moment, we have started to really evaluate, right? We're kind of in our next step, our next tier of co-teaching model, which is evaluating the current system that we have, what is working, what is not working, and how can we support our administration and really understanding that co-teaching model so that we have a really strong system of accountability for observation, feedback, and coaching for that co-teaching model. And really developing an understanding of, our system of support. What does that look like? What does that feel like? and how do we, again, authentically provide observation, feedback, and coaching for these strong models. So at the moment, we are actually engaged in evaluating, observing, looking at what's been working really well with our model, and developing opportunities for strengthening the model that we have currently. And, really thinking about our cohesive assessment practices. As you saw with Julie's presentation, alignment with assessment practices is something that we feel really strongly about. We want to make sure that, the assessment, the information that we're receiving from assessments really does inform our practice. And so what does that look like if we're looking at assessment data? How do we utilize that information to really impact learning? And so that's part of the work that we really want to dig deep within this realm of collaborative teaching model. Any questions on this area?
I'd just like to say, I see that my eyes are going to coaching. And I'm thinking you wouldn't say to the children on the team, how do you think I'm coaching? How do you think the atmosphere here? You would lead. And just an aside, when we had the demonstration here at our last meeting, I couldn't penetrate how it happened, but those children that were here that you wouldn't, from observation, you would not think would put on such an amazing display. What was the magic of the person who developed that demonstration, that he got such respect and such excellence out of those children? That's an open-ended question, but didn't that strike you all as an amazing transformation right before our eyes? I mean, you looked at the kids here and there and everything. He said something and everybody got proud and got dignified and realized that they had something to offer and put on an amazing event in front of our eyes. So I don't know if any of us know that the secret of that drawing out of excellence of children, but I don't think it's asking them. I'm against the surveys of children. Survey the parents if you'd like, but not the children. Okay.
Question? Yes. In either you, Superintendent Thompson, or Assistant Superintendent Cologne, this collaborative teaching models, this one, we're not surveying students. This is working with teachers, coaches,
yes,
to be better at what they're doing.
Yeah, so just
absolutely.
A quick example is we don't want students to lose out on learning grade level material, right? Standards-based material. So instead of pulling that student out to a special education teacher or a student out to get services to learn English, we're embedding those supports in the classroom where those teachers come in and collaborate together. That's what that co-teaching model looks like. Very basic explanation. There's a lot more to that, but it's a basic explanation.
I have seen that in schools, and it kind of brings chaos. The bringing the teacher in to work with certain specific students that need the extra help into a class that integrated with a class that absorbs the material more easily. I think that's why perhaps they went to, well, maybe it would be better off if we take the student out in one-on-one rather than have them in the classroom. I've seen lots of
So we still use that model too, but it goes back to our MTSS, our model of tiered support. All depends on where that student is and what that instruction looks like. So this is a continuum. Some happen in the classroom with more support. Some are pulled out in a small group. Others are pulled out one-on-one. So it all happens differently. So we're not saying we're not doing that. We are, but it happens at, depending on the group of kids and what their needs are.
Yeah, and I would say, just to add on to what you're saying, when we have this collaborative teaching model, it actually, really offers an opportunity for peer teachers to engage in dialogue with one another about planning, right? And so you really have a thought partner in the classroom, and you are awarded the opportunity. If I'm a general ed teacher and I'm really, I don't have the same level of skill as someone who is licensed in, ESL or special education, but I happen to have a co-teacher colleague who has that licensed area and does specialize in that area. Now I'm also, my world and my access to a different level of understanding is open, right? And so it really does engage in that same model of, peer collaboration that we want to see happen in the classroom. That is modeled for our students every single day through collaborative, teaching. And as far as the coaching goes, I think one thing that, that I'd like to share is, we are as a community really shifting to our leaders being coaches and really moving away from just the strict evaluation of teachers and really having and fostering a relationship with our, educators so that, we feel really comfortable sharing that we are in a continuum of learning as well, right? And so there's opportunity to engage in conversation about how I want to plan a lesson and have a real point person available for me to be able to have dialogue with. So that actually lends itself to this next slide. So if you don't mind.
Add one thing to that. Perhaps
Sure.
Reduction in size of classes when you have, or figure out how it can be very chaotic in a large class with 28 children. But perhaps that model that you're discussing would work well with 8 to 10 children or something like this. That's all. Just have that input.
Yeah, 8 to 10 children is a small group instruction, but I will say that we have a really great, from my experience in visiting classrooms, we really do have some really great class sizes. So I appreciate what you're sharing, Rosemary. And as I think you went on a walk recently to classrooms, so you may have seen that our class sizes are actually, really ideal for learning in Fitchburg. So I think we all agree and really do support that that idea of a smaller class size.
Glenda?
He has one thing.
Yes, sure, absolutely.
I've operated with both. There's one called in-class model. All right, kids get pulled out, but now some of those kids, instead of having them pulled out, they're in an in-class model with their peers, with their classmates, with a separate teacher, and she's teaching those 2, 3, 4 kids who might have been.
Absolutely chaotic. I've never seen it work well.
Well, I have. I think maybe Deb.
Very little, but.
Fitchburg has done a nice job with training teachers in this co-teaching model. So they're trained and they're matched. And like you mentioned, the common planning time. So it's actually 2 people working together. And I've seen some incredible results with it.
And I've seen 3 in Fitchburg. I hear what you're saying, but I've seen in Fitchburg, I just finished my practicum, for my CAGS principal certification, and I was in classrooms in Fitchburg at Longsjo, at Memorial, at the high school, and the ones that I saw, they were very effective, just so that, just to share that.
What was the class?
Training.
Yep. All right, Glenda, you want to talk about the last strategy?
Absolutely. So our last strategy is, again, fostering on some of the things that we've already talked about, is support for effective team practices. As you can see, we really have a lot of cohesion among the 3 strategies that we are, looking to implement. And so that word cohesion is extremely important to us. Part of the work that we have done is really think about what in our district and in our schools are our instructional levers that we can really leverage and utilize to make a huge impact on student and on the classroom instruction, right? And so if we think about that, we have some great resources that already exist in Fitchburg. Those are our instructional leadership teams, our ILT. Those are our PLC, which we've already talked about, our professional learning communities, which is the opportunity where we offer time to plan, right? And then going back to our instructional leadership team, that is a time where members of, not all staff members, but some of our instructional leaders in the school come together and they look at data and really make some decisions about some informed practices that they are going to engage in and strategies that they're going to engage in throughout the year to improve student practice based on their own individual school data. And so that's why that third bullet is so important, because those are our data cycles. So we look at that data. Typically, we look at that data starting at the instructional leadership team, and then it is brought to our professional learning communities. But we look at that data and really identify the needs of our students and really work on some instructional practices that are going to make a really big change for our students based on our school's, improvement plans for the year. So each of these components are extremely important. And so one of the things that we are looking to do is to have more cohesion across our schools with our ILTs, with our PLC, with our common planning time, which is something that we actually want to ensure that that's available to all of our, schools, and that, we increase the time that our teachers are planning, because we hear that. That is, actual feedback that people want that time for planning, and we want to provide that time for planning. So that is something that we would like to increase, for the purpose, just as Dr. Nice said, we want to ensure that we're planning for instructional teacher moves and for practices that support all learners, right? The idea is that we really have clear definitions of what each of these look like, so that our schools have a little bit more cohesion on some of these existing practices, while also really being, while really rooting those practices in the individualized needs for their schools. And so lastly, we also want to have cohesion across our administrative mentorship, and we want to provide an opportunity for our district leaders to also have some opportunities to be mentored, as they're entering their leadership space in their first, or second year of administration. And so the other area in really improving effective team practice is defining what data it is that we want to utilize and when, right? There is a lot of data that we have access to, as you have seen from some of the presentations that have already been presented to you. But we also have student writing that is at the fingertips of all of our teachers, and thinking about how do we utilize some of that student work that is in front of us to also make some informed decisions in our data cycles. Again, this is really important work. As you see from everything that we've talked about in each of these strategies, these are things that we already have strong foundations for, and we're really looking at kind of strengthening that work just a little bit deeper in the next 3 years.
Thank you, Glenda.
You're very welcome.
Yep.
Got one more thing to say?
Rosemary has one more question.
Yeah. There's such a strong emphasis on data. Data's meant, I believe, best as a tool and not as the top of the order of teaching children. That's all. The data seems to have been like risen to the top. What's the data proof? What's the data proof?
But we agree with you, and that's why we talked about student work, because that's a data point, right? We actually have to get a piece of paper and look at how did the student respond? Put that underneath and examine what that looks like based on what we asked them to do. That's a piece of data that we've been looking at and we want to do more with, because that tells a lot about a student and what next steps need to be.
A teacher has a skill, too, to know their students, and a real teacher. And another thing that I didn't see in here, what's the effect of absences? If everybody's a professional, this or that, and somebody from the team gets COVID and is out or anything, And I do know that there's a dearth of substitute teachers to call on, and also a lessening number of teachers, people entering the teacher profession. So I just want.
Oh, I really appreciate you saying that. Actually, in that 1.3C with a diverse approach to meaningful engagement, one of the metrics of the social emotional climate surveys is actually supporting the attendance. And so attendance rates are included in those climate surveys as well. And the impact of that attendance on student experience.
Yes.
Thank you. So I may be going back a little bit behind, but we got to be voting tonight on this proposal. So when the 4 federal designated groups of students were selected, you did look at the data to determine that these were the 4 that are more affected, the 4 groups that are more affected in the Fitchburg Public Schools, correct? Okay, good. So then there's also an overlap, I believe, for example, the first one, which are the students with disabilities, there's, I don't know the percentage, but there will be a percentage of African Americans that are students with disability. So once these 3 levels that you are proposing are accepted, that doesn't mean that because this particular student is African American, we're not going to, everybody is going to, even Caucasian students are going to be, everybody will be benefited by these things.
Correct.
Thank you.
Yep, that's a
Absolutely.
really important. Thank you for saying that, Dr. Knight, because that's really an important thing. Just because I'm special ed and white or African American doesn't mean I won't benefit from this too.
Correct.
Right. So tonight we are asking for the stamp of approval to submit our application on April 1st. In front of you, you have the guidance. There's also a link there. Some of the things that I've been doing is over the last several weeks, I've been going to all the school council and PTO meetings at the schools to present this information and get feedback from the parents and the teachers that are at the school councils and PTOs. I have a few more coming up this week and next week. Tomorrow morning, there'll be a survey that will be sent out to all families and staff on these 3 evidence-based strategies to get some feedback on them. And then we will finish the writing of the plan, which is, as you can see, very strenuous. It's a long document that we have to submit. We'll be finishing that up in the next 2 weeks and submitting that in for approval on April 1st. Okay? Thank you. All right. Budget, you have, I don't think there's much to say on the budget right now, Mr. Roach.
Like 37 slides. You guys were
Ready?
kidding around.
We're just going to ask for your vote.
Later on, it's action item
It's an action
24-367.
The budget update is we're continuing individual school meetings this week. The secondary schools will be meeting with us to review their ideas for budget enhancements for the FY25, for fiscal year 25. Those will continue, like I said, through this week. We are continuing to work with the city to determine the indirect costs that is a factor in the overall $101 million budget. That will continue again through this week and probably next week. We have a resource subcommittee meeting scheduled for March 26th. That'll probably start, because it comes right after building needs, so approximately 5:45, 5:30. We'll do a little bit more in-depth assessment of where we are with the budget at that point. We are continuing with the negotiations process, too, with personnel across the district. Again, that is a factor in the overall budget. And then the admin team, the Fitchburg Public Schools central office team, will have recommendations planned for the April 1st school committee meeting. So that's kind of where we are now, and glad to take any questions.
Yes, Rose.
Me? Okay.
Dr. Knight, excuse me.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Roach. How are you handling these administrators, with all due respect, that may be a little bit shy in their budget request, and they're at schools that are really needed of more finances? You know what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
So this goes back to even starting meetings with the principals mainly, but also their administrative teams in the fall. We would have Google meetings on site. They have a Google form template where they can put in requests, so it's
I've seen that.
anonymous, but they can add in what they want, what they feel is important to promote the improvements that they would like to see or address the needs that are specific to the school. What I've seen so far is, and there's lots of individual conversations, lots of those. So what I've seen so far is the schools have made the requests for those areas where they feel like they either need additional staff, where they might need an improvement to the school building, where they may need, additional resources or materials or supplies, or even a programmatic element that would be unique to the school. Again, if there is an individual that you're familiar with that might feel like they're reticent or a little bit concerned about requesting, I would definitely have them reach out to me. Glad to talk through that with them, and certainly.
I was going to say, Mr. Roach, in the last 4 meetings we have the rest tomorrow. No one's been bashful.
No.
I think they've been pretty vocal.
Yeah.
So, I'm glad that they feel comfortable enough to advocate for
Yes,
this.
I am glad. Now, I don't know any, I'm not exactly sure of anything specific, but the easiest comparison that I could take a look at is at the middle schools. We have Longsjo and we have Memorial. They didn't tell me anything. I don't know. I'm just saying, looking at what I see. We had a walkthrough the other day, and I'm saying I would think that Longsjo would have a lot more on their budget sheet checked off that we need this and we need that based on the physical condition of the school.
Sure.
But I didn't see what you have from them yet. But let's say, for example, if
we are meeting with them tomorrow.
Okay, but if Memorial has a larger list of items that they need and Longsjo have less, how would you handle that? If you that know the difference in the schools, you will say, well, I think Longsjo would need some more because of the physical condition of the building. I'm just trying to look out for a better environment for the students at Longsjo, to be able to be in an environment conducive to learning.
No, I think you make a great point. And the earlier slide showed even just the staff investment. We've added 18 positions at Longsjo and 12 at Memorial in those first 3 years. Not because Memorial doesn't have needs, but there were maybe different needs that were required at Longsjo. And just going back to even the point that you were making, Rosemary, I think is really important. Equality would mean we give everybody the exact same amount. Equity is we recognize not everybody is in the exact same space.
Yep.
We want to get them to the same outcomes, but we might need to do a little adjusting to support that particular. So I think the example of the staffing investments at Longsjo and Memorial might be a good way to articulate that a little bit in terms of how we have tried to do that in the first 3 years of the student opportunity funding.
I agree with that. Thank you, Mr. Roach.
Glenda, your hand's up.
Yes, I just wanted to add on to that and also let Rosemary know that every year I work with our turnaround schools and we actually submit a target assistance grant. So any schools who are in need of assistance also get an additional funding that the state supports us with through the targeted assistance grants to speak to exactly what you are discussing.
Thank you, Glenda. All right, last few items.
Yes, Pete. One thing. We have on tonight the CAPS Collaborative to be approved, and some people might not know what the CAPS Collaborative is. A special needs school. It's made up of 11 cities and towns, Fitchburg, Leominster, Gardner, and then going out into Westminster, Ashburnham, Orange, Athol, out to the Quabbin District, Petersham, Orange. And we have our main classroom is in Westminster, right on 140, but we have classrooms throughout the districts. One of the classrooms we have is in the Air Shirley. We have our deaf and hard of hearing classroom in Air Shirley and also in Newton, which are part of our program. So Air Shirley, which has one of our programs, would like to join the CAPS Collaborative, and it has to be voted on by the 11 cities and towns and then submitted to DESE, and then they could become a voting member of the CAPS Collaborative.
And that's on as an action item.
Yes, it is. I just, in case anybody didn't know what the collaborative was.
So last four things from me, and I'll hand it back over to the mayor. The first is a donation from the Subaru of America in court in the amount of $3,000 to support student activities at Fitchburg High School. And then the next two are grants that we would like to submit. The first grant is the Greening the Gateway Cities grant for $150,000, which will support tree planting, tree watering, and maintenance. And this is happening at Longsjo, Mr. Roach?
At 130 Academies.
130, which is the green space that we're creating for
Right on the
Longsjo
corner.
students.
Yeah.
And then the last grant we like to submit this evening is the Civics Teaching and Learning Grant for $40,000, which will be used to continue our partnership with Generation Citizen that helps support our facilitation of high-quality civics instruction at our middle schools and high schools. And then last but not least, we have policy number 5712. It's the physical restraint policy. There is some highlighted words that we received from the state that needed to be updated. So that is up for approval this evening.
I have a question.
Yes.
Superintendent Thompson, the Greening the Gateway Cities, or
Yes.
Roach,
Yes.
this won't be in competition with the current Greening the Gateway Cities grant that we have that runs through Growing Places.
No,
This is in addition
totally
to.
separate.
Yep.
Yep.
Fantastic. And it's for the green space that we're working on expanding at Longsjo.
It's the corner lot that's vacant, abandoned. City Property Division moved it to the Fitchburg Public Schools on October 30th of this school year. So we've been working with DCR's urban forester, Larissa Parse, on, it's an intensive application. I'm hopeful that we'll receive it. We're working with a tree company as well, so we have it in sort of like a landscape design so far. But it is completely separate from any of the other things, any of the other applications, I should say, that I know the DPW is doing or other city
I think
departments.
this agency gives a lot of grants away for
They
this.
want to give the grants. Yep.
They're begging for people to apply.
Yeah, and, my office has been working with the National River Watershed Association and the DPW and other
Sure.
agencies, and they actually did a site walk today at Longsjo.
We did one with them in the fall. We did
Yeah.
one with
Right,
them. Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
we were identifying, areas that we'd really like to see these climate-based solutions, especially when it comes to, economic justice community and our low-income population, especially around the Longsjo Middle School. So the DPW director actually drove the bus today and took everybody on a loop around Longsjo to show
Yeah.
them what and everyone was very excited about greening the Longsjo area for the students.
We're
Oh, that makes me
hopeful. I
happy.
mean, yeah. No, thank you.
All right, back to you.
Okay, back to me. All right, so we have now before us number 8 action items for all the things the superintendent has just discussed. I don't know if we would like any questions on any of these action items, or we can entertain a motion to bundle these.
Did you say 8 action items?
Number 8.
Number 8, okay, sorry, okay, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
There are action items number 27-367 through 24-371.
I'll make a motion to bundle them.
Motion and second to bundle the action items. Any comments, questions? Do we have a?
Motion to accept the bundle.
We have to vote on approving the bundle
Yeah.
first.
I don't.
So you know.
Thanks, Mr. Walsh.
Just so you know.
Getting a little tired
All right,
tonight.
okay.
Okay. Do we have a vote? We'll,
A motion
motion
to
to.
accept the bundle.
Show of hands.
Aye.
All right, that is unanimous. Okay, now that bundle
Motion
is
to-
before us.
Motion to accept the bundle.
Second.
Okay, motion and second to accept the bundle before us. I'll raise a show of hands.
Aye.
Okay, that's unanimous. Fantastic.
We do need that training.
Okay, and other business, number 9 on our agenda. It was brought to my attention by our city solicitor that the open meeting law complaint on February 5th from Jacqueline Wetchy, the discussion that we had about it was good and productive. However, you know, we have to go through the motions and re-vote on the items on the agenda for which we did not take a roll call vote. So we have, you know, the listed items that we did not take a roll call vote on through there. On number 1, you can see A through D. Do we have any questions?
I do. I have questions.
Yes.
I'm not sure under A, school committee members and student reports. I'm not sure what, there was nothing in there that,
There were no votes.
there were no
on that.
votes, so I'm not sure why that's
Right.
there.
Okay, I can
mean,
I can
unless-
entertain a motion to dismiss that item A, if you'd like.
I just,
Yeah, I'll
did this-
make that motion.
did the city solicitor say what that was? Do you know what that is, why that is here to begin with?
Just listed on our agenda. Trying to
But
be.
we only have to
There
approve
were no
votes.
votes. There were no votes.
So, you know, in the spirit of being extra cautious, I suppose, it is listed on our agenda for a revote. If you are so inclined, you could make a motion to, you know, remove that letter A from our vote.
I guess I was hoping you'd have an explanation of what letter A is covering. That's,
Any discussion, perhaps, that we had on school committee members and student reports?
We didn't take any votes.
we only have to approve the votes that we're taking at the February 5th meeting. So if there was no vote, there's no reason for A to be there. Yes, no?
I can entertain a motion to dismiss A from our vote, to exclude it.
I'll make a motion to exclude A.
Second?
Okay, motion and second to exclude number 1A from our vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, all opposed? Okay, 1 opposed. That passes.
We don't know what it is.
Any further discussion? We
Under
have-
C, I'm not sure what, under the superintendent's report, what, again, I'm not sure there were any votes taken under the superintendent's report on February 5th.
I can entertain a motion to
Motion
exclude
to
C.
exclude
Second.
superintendent's report.
Second.
Okay, motion and second to exclude C from the vote. Do we have a show of hands?
Oh.
Okay,
Aye.
and opposed? Okay, we have 1 opposed.
Just like to say, I believe, Jim, that you're saying that there was no vote taken on that, and therefore, we don't need to vote.
Right.
Yeah.
Correct.
Because
That's
you were
correct.
saying you didn't know what, it's not what the subject matter is, it was whether we voted on it or not.
Yeah,
Correct.
right,
Correct.
right.
See what I'm saying?
Right.
Yeah.
Yes,
Just to clarify that.
okay.
And-
And we're relying on Jim.
And just, if anybody's saying under, no, it doesn't apply, never mind.
Okay, so we have before us 1B and 1D.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we approve 1B, motion to recognize the bargaining unit of the nurses as MNA.
We have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and second to revote on 1B to recognize the bargaining unit for nurses as MNA. Do we have,
Yes, roll call vote.
Yes.
Mayor Squalia,
aye.
Mr. Stevens,
Yes.
Mr. Walsh,
Yes.
Mrs. Reynolds,
Yes?
Dr. Knight,
Yes.
Mrs. Jeffries,
Yes.
and Mrs. England is absent. So the vote is unanimous to approve.
Very good. Thank you, Ms. Greenlees. We have before us 1D, action items 24-353 through 24-359.
Make a motion on action items 24-353 through 24-359.
Second?
Motion to approve 24-353 through 24-359. Motion and second. Are there any discussion of the motion? Okay. show of, roll call vote?
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am. Yes. Mayor Squalia?
Aye.
Yes, Mr. Stevens?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Mrs. Reynolds?
Yes.
Dr. Knight?
Yes.
Mrs. Jeffries?
Yes.
And Mrs. England is absent, so we are unanimous.
Thank you. And so, the vote here is to authorize chair.
I'll make the vote to authorize the chair, Mayor Squalia, to send a reply to February 5th, 2024 open meeting law complaint.
Okay, and just for clarification on the agenda, that is 24-372, and the number 2 in the other business is erroneous. So we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and second to approve the chair to send a reply to the February 5th open meeting law complaint. Any discussion? Roll call vote.
Yes, ma'am. Mayor Squalia?
Aye.
Mr. Stevens?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Mrs. Reynolds?
Yes.
Dr. Knight?
Yes.
Mrs. Jeffries?
Yes.
And again, Mrs. England is absent. Unanimous.
Thank you very much. Okay, our executive session, we do not have that at this time. We now have adjournment
Motion
on
for
our
adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
We have a motion and second to adjourn. I will take that under unanimous consent. We're adjourned.